soft breeze moves through the stone colonnades of the Roman palace. Outside, the empire trembles, plague spreads, borders crack, whispers of rebellion travel fast. But inside his study, Marcus Aurelius sits by the dim glow of a flickering oil lamp, writing by hand. His shoulders are square, his brow calm. His pen moves slowly across the parchment. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What made an emperor unshaken in the face of chaos, not control, but surrender. You've been taught that control is strength, that only by mastering everything, your schedule, your outcomes, even the opinions of others, can you be safe. But today, you feel the weight of that belief. The exhaustion of trying to bend a world that doesn't obey. You check the news, feel the pulse quicken. You try to fix things outside your reach. You hold on to words someone said to you, repeating them like chains. You chase certainty in places where certainty was never promised. And still, you suffer. The Stoics knew this feeling intimately. They lived through war, exile, betrayal, loss. But instead of panicking, they learned to release. Not as an escape, not as apathy, but as mastery. You might not endure this at first. Letting go feels like giving up, like losing ground. But look at Marcus. He let go daily, not of responsibility, but of illusion. The illusion that he could control anything beyond his thoughts, choices, and character. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And to explain why it is so important, we need to start with what seems the simplest. You walk through a crowded Roman street, vendors shouting, carts rattling, citizens gesturing in debate. The world moves around you, unpredictable and loud. You can't control the weather. You can't control the voices. You can't even control how others see you. But you can control something. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control. Epictetus put it plainly: some things are up to us and some are not. This one idea, more than any other, separates the Stoic from the frantic. You begin to see it everywhere. Your body. You can care for it, but illness may still come. Your job, you can show up, but outcomes shift. Your reputation. You can act with integrity, but gossip travels faster than virtue. What's yours is small but sacred. Your choices, your values, your reactions. Control is not a matter of reaching out. It's a matter of turning inward. Marcus Aurelius wrote while under siege both politically and militarily. In his private meditations, he reminded himself not to expect the world to behave. Instead, he asked whether he had behaved. That was the line. That was the work. But modern life pulls you across that line every day. You're sold the illusion that if you try hard enough, hustle fast enough, you can control everything. But it's not true. And chasing that illusion only leaves you burnt out and bitter. There's a philosophical tension here. If you only focus on what you control, won't you become passive? The Stoics said no. You act. You strive. But your serenity isn't tied to the outcome. You give everything and let go of the rest. So now when you feel that tightening in your chest, the fear, the frustration, the urge to fix what isn't yours, you pause, you ask, is this within my control? If the answer is no, then you put it down. You don't abandon the world. You simply stop trying to own it. And in that surrender, your freedom begins. You've been carrying something heavy, though no one sees it. A quiet, grinding weight you tuck behind, smiles behind small talk, behind all the tasks you keep checking off. It's the weight of what you cannot control, clutched tightly, as if it were yours to bear. But Epictetus would gently shake his head. You are not disturbed by events, but by your judgment about them. and judgments, unlike events, are yours to change. You sit alone one evening staring at a message that hasn't been answered. You scroll through news you can't change. You replay a conversation that went wrong. And then, like a breath through still water, it hits you, none of this is within your power. And yet it has power over you. The Stoics understood this invisible burden. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling the most powerful empire on earth, knew he couldn't control whether his soldiers stayed loyal, whether his son grew virtuous, or whether his enemies spoke truth. But what he could control was whether he lived by principle even in disappointment. You realize now that so much of your suffering has come not from what happened, but from your refusal to let go. From gripping the outcomes, from believing that if you just tried harder, cared more, worried deeper, you could force the world into order. But life isn't built to obey. It's built to unfold. And your job is not to command it, but to move with it. Some scholars ask, isn't detachment a kind of denial? But Stoicism doesn't deny reality. It honors it. It says, feel the emotion, but don't become it. Let the world be wild, but don't let it own your peace. So you begin to release one weight at a time. The unanswered question, the outcome you hoped for, the person you couldn't change. And with each release, the burden lightens. You were never meant to carry it all, only your part. And your part is always enough. Rain lashes against the stone roof. You sit beneath the archway of a crumbling villa watching the storm roll across the hills. In front of you, the trees sway, the wind howls, the sky opens wide. But inside, you are still. This is what Epictetus mastered: stillness in the middle of powerlessness. He was born a slave. His leg was broken by his master. He owned nothing, had no control over where he slept, what he ate, or whether he'd survive the next day. And yet he said, I must die. But must I die groaning? What kind of strength does it take to be surrounded by chaos and not be pulled into it? You've had your own storms, a diagnosis, a betrayal, a loss that came without warning. You couldn't stop any of it, but you could choose how to meet it. And when you chose to breathe instead of break there for a moment, you touched the Stoic mind. The Stoics called this the inner citadel, a place inside you that remains untouchable no matter the force outside. Marcus Aurelius used this idea often, especially during war. When his armies failed, when his advisors turned, when the plague consumed his people, he returned to the still center of his mind. Scholars still debate whether such detachment dulls our humanity. But Stoicism insists it sharpens it, because when you stop flailing against the wind, you finally see the shape of the storm and your place within it. So when the next wave hits, you don't collapse. You observe. You don't deny the fear. You acknowledge it and then decide how to move. You may not control the event, but you control the meaning you give it. You control the step you take next. And that step, that calm, measured step, is your power. You don't need to command the storm. You only need to stand through it untouched. You tighten your grip. On plans, on outcomes, on other people's promises. You keep refreshing the page, checking the message, calculating what to say next, so things will turn out the way you imagine. But the more you try to control it, the more it slips through your hands. That's when the Stoic insight returns to you. Control is often an illusion. Epictetus said, if you want anything beyond your own reasoned choice to be under your control, you will be disappointed. And now you see how deeply disappointment roots itself, not in reality, but in expectation. You look at the world today, apps promise certainty, headlines scream urgency, systems reward busyness. You're told that with enough effort, enough strategy, enough self-help, you can master everything, your future, your relationships, your reputation. But the Stoics saw the danger in this fantasy over 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the constant flux of life, about how rivers change course, bodies decay, empires fall, and yet we mourn as if we've been robbed. But we were never owed stability, only the opportunity to respond with virtue. Control is seductive because it promises safety. But that safety is shallow, fragile, breakable, unreal. And when it cracks, we suffer twice, once from the event, and again from the belief that it shouldn't have happened. There's a debate among modern thinkers: is Stoicism too resigned, too accepting? But Stoicism isn't about surrendering your effort. It's about surrendering delusion. You still act, you still try, but you release the demand that the universe bow to your will. So now you begin to release your grip. Not all at once, but finger by finger. You stop refreshing the page. You sit with the unknown. You let the future arrive without trying to script it. And strangely, in that letting go, you feel something return: peace. Because control was never power. Clarity is. You cared deeply. You tried your best. You showed up, gave everything, waited patiently, and hoped. But still, it didn't turn out the way you imagined. And now there's a quiet ache in your chest, the kind that lingers not from the event itself, but from the story you attached to it. Because as the Stoics teach, attachment breeds suffering, Epictetus warned. When you are delighted with anything, be not too much delighted. That doesn't mean you shouldn't love or hope or care. It means you must do so with eyes open and hands light. Because anything gripped too tightly, whether it's a person, a goal, or a dream, can become a blade when it slips. You look back at Marcus Aurelius. He lost children, friends, trust, even his own health. And yet he wrote with calm. He didn't harden. He simply reminded himself, receive without pride, let go without attachment. It's not easy. We build narratives around what should be. That relationship was supposed to last. That project was supposed to succeed. That version of the future, that image we rehearsed in our minds, was supposed to be real. But it wasn't. And the pain isn't just grief, it's resistance. It's your mind clinging to a door that's already closed. Some argue, is detachment unfeeling? Doesn't it make us cold? But Stoicism doesn't strip away love, it purifies it. You love someone not because they're yours, but because they are. And when they change or leave or fail you, you grieve, but you don't shatter. So now you begin to practice gentle detachment. You hold things like water in your palm, open, fluid-free. You remind yourself nothing is promised. And in that truth, every moment becomes more vivid. Every gift becomes more sacred. And when something slips away, you don't chase it. You bow to what was and return to what is. Because letting go is not weakness, it is the highest expression of wisdom. Your mind starts to wander again toward what might happen, toward what could go wrong. You feel the pull of the uncertain, the craving to predict, to fix, to make safe what was never yours to command. But then you remember a line from Marcus Aurelius: confine yourself to the present. And in that sentence, you begin to reclaim your life. The Stoics knew the future was fog, the past a shadow. Only this moment, the breath, the choice, the movement of your own reason is real, and only here can peace be built. You recall how Epictetus taught his students to pay attention to where their minds ran. He urged them not to be philosophers in speech alone, but in action, in awareness. What is in front of you, he'd ask. What is yours to do right now? Because the truth is, this most anxiety lives in the imagined, not the actual. You fear what hasn't happened. You grieve what hasn't returned. But the present, it asks for very little. Just your attention. Just your care. There's a philosophical tension here: is focusing only on the present selfish? Doesn't it make us short-sighted? The Stoics would say, no. Presence sharpens responsibility. It means you wash the dish fully. You listen completely. You breathe without distraction. And from that, your character forms moment by moment. So you start to come back. You put down the news for a while. You stop refreshing the app. You stop rehearsing imaginary conversations. Instead, you observe your thoughts. You choose your next small action. You reclaim the power of now. And you realize this is the only space where control exists. Not in the vast world, but in this breath, this word, this choice. Let the world spin. You stand where you are. You are not behind. You are not late. You are here. And here is always enough. They spoke ill of you, behind your back, maybe even to your face. Their words twisted your intentions, shaded your name in someone else's mind. You hear about it days later, and it stings. The instinct rises, explain yourself, defend your honor, clear the air. But then a quieter instinct stirs beneath the noise, a Stoic instinct. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, it is not necessary to react to every impression, so you don't. You sit instead with the discomfort, not to suppress it, but to watch it. You ask, what part of me is hurt by this? Is it truth or pride? The Stoics knew well the dangers of reputation. In the Roman world, a man's name could elevate him or destroy him. And yet Marcus, an emperor, often advised himself to let go of concern for praise or blame. Not because those things didn't matter, but because they didn't belong to him. You cannot control what others say. You cannot control what they think. You can only live in such a way that truth becomes obvious not through defense, but through consistency. There's a temptation to correct every falsehood to win every narrative. But Stoicism whispers, you don't need to, and often trying to do so only binds you further, more conversations, more entanglements, more wasted energy on shadows. Some philosophers argue that reputation is part of justice, that a good person must be seen as good. But the Stoics draw a line. They say, yes, live justly, but no, do not beg to be seen. So now when you hear that someone misrepresented you, you breathe. You let the fire burn without feeding it. You remind yourself, their words are theirs. My actions are mine. You become untouchable not by fighting the lie, but by outlasting it. And in the silence, your character speaks for you. Section 9. You try to be kind, to be clear, to do the right thing. But still they misunderstand you. They twist your motives, assign you thoughts you never had. They gossip, they assume, they project, and you find yourself trapped in the impossible task of controlling other people's opinions. But Marcus Aurelius whispers again, you have no obligation to convince anyone. And now something inside begins to let go. Because trying to be understood by everyone is a form of quiet slavery. You speak then second guess. You act then over-explain. You live with one eye on the mirror others are holding. But Stoicism turns that mirror inward not for vanity, but for honesty. You remember how Epictetus cautioned his students against reputation chasing. He said, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish. That sounds harsh until you live it. Until you feel the weight lift when you no longer need to be admired. People's thoughts are shaped by their past, their fears, their projections, not your truth. You can't fix the filter they look through. You can only keep your own window clean. Some argue, but isn't perception part of reality? Don't we need each other's approval to function? The Stoics answer perhaps, but not at the cost of your inner alignment. Your aim is not to be liked, it is to be whole. So you stop explaining, you stop correcting, not out of spite, but out of wisdom. You focus your energy not on how you're seen, but on how you live, on the choices that are yours. the conduct that reflects your core, and something shifts. You begin to walk more freely, speak more simply, think more quietly. Because when you give up the fight to be understood, you gain the peace of being real. They may still get you wrong, but you've finally gotten yourself right. It happened. The thing you feared, resisted, or tried to avoid. A plan failed. A person left. Something broke and you were left with the shards. You sit in the quiet after heart-pounding, mind-racing, and then the thought arrives. This shouldn't have happened. But the Stoics would ask, why not? Marcus Aurelius reminds you gently, external things are not the problem. It's your assessment of them. Remove that and you are free. And suddenly you see it. The pain you're feeling is real. But it's not just from the event, it's from the meaning you've added on top. You've said to yourself, this is unfair, or this ruins everything, or I can't handle this. But the event itself, it's neutral. It just is. This is the core of Stoic clarity. Events are raw. Judgment adds pain. You can't always stop the storm, but you can stop calling the storm wrong. You can stop the spiral of should have and shouldn't have. You can stop building entire catastrophes in your head with words alone. Epictetus told his students to train their language, not as a performance, but as discipline. Don't say I have lost something. Say it has been returned. Don't say I've been insulted. Say someone said words. It isn't denial, it's precision. And from precision comes peace. There's a philosophical challenge here. Doesn't this make us robotic, unfeeling? But the Stoics didn't reject emotion, they refined it. They sought to respond to life as it is, not as we wish it were. So the next time something goes wrong, you slow down. You notice your words. You ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Then you strip it back. You describe only what happened, not why it was unfair or what it means about you. Just the fact. Just the present. And in that space, the pain becomes lighter. Not because the world changed, but because your mind did. You still care. You still strive. You still hope. Letting go hasn't made you passive. It's made you precise, because now you understand something essential to Stoicism. Letting go is not giving up. There's a story of Marcus Aurelius in the final years of his reign. His empire was fragile, his health failing, his inner circle riddled with tension. Still, he got up each day, attended to matters of state, cared for his people, trained his son. He didn't walk away. But he also didn't demand that things unfold his way. He wrote, do what is necessary. And whatever happens next, receive it as if you had chosen it. That is the Stoic art: engagement without attachment. You show up for your responsibilities. You speak the truth. You hold the line. But you release your grip on how it's received, how it ends, or whether it's appreciated. You do not control the outcome. You control the intention. This balance isn't easy. We confuse surrender with failure. We think if we stop worrying, we've stopped caring. But caring deeply and clinging tightly are not the same. Some critics argue that Stoicism risks detachment from humanity. But in reality, Stoicism invites the purest kind of engagement, one driven by reason, not obsession. Service, not ego. So now you work hard, but let the results go. You love fully, but don't chain your identity to someone else's response. You show up to the battle, but don't require the victory. You plant the seed and trust the earth. Letting go doesn't mean stepping away. It means standing tall without leaning on anything uncertain. You're still in the world, but not ruled by it. Still acting, but not owned by outcome. Still loving, but not losing yourself in love. This is your power, full presence, free of grasping. You do your part and release the rest. The river flows. The seasons turn. The sun rises, and somewhere far beyond your reach, a star burns out in silence. You watch the world move without your permission, without your input, without asking if it fits your plans. And now you begin to understand what the Stoics meant when they said live according to nature. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What happens to each of us is ordered by nature, and what benefits the whole benefits the part." Not because everything that happens is pleasant, but because everything that happens belongs. The Stoics didn't worship chaos. They recognized order, and order deeper than human logic. Empires fall, loved ones leave, bodies age and fail. Rain falls on the unjust and the just alike. But this is not tragedy. It is nature. And resisting it only deepens your suffering. You recall how the Stoics looked to nature not with fear but with reverence. Epictetus would point to a tree losing its leaves and ask, does it mourn, or does it prepare for spring? Seneca would remind his readers that lightning strikes, fires burn, and yet life continues. Modern minds often see this as fatalism. But Stoicism isn't fatalistic, it's aligned. It says, understand the tide, and stop trying to swim against it. Flow with it, not in passivity, but in peace. You begin to notice your own resistance. The tension when things don't go your way. The need to fix what was never broken. The heartbreak when life simply unfolds without asking your permission. And then you let go. Not of effort, but of war with reality. You say, let this be part of the whole. You trust that your small thread is still woven into something vast, something complete. You don't need to direct nature. You only need to walk in step with it. Let the rain fall. Let the tide turn. Let the story change. And walk calmly through it all, because you are no longer fighting life. You are walking beside it. You feel a strange quiet forming, not apathy, not numbness, but something sharper. It's as if the chaos outside no longer decides the weather inside. You're not detached from life. You're just no longer tethered to its outcomes. This is what the Stoics called freedom through obedience to reason. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You used to think freedom was doing whatever you wanted whenever you wanted. Now you know better. Freedom isn't unbound impulse, it's inner order. The discipline to choose your response. The clarity to act without fear. The courage to let go without resentment. You remember the life of Cleanthes, a Stoic who worked all day drawing water from wells to survive and studied by lamplight at night. He owned nothing. He commanded no one. But his mind was his, and that made him richer than kings. Because real control, the only kind that lasts, doesn't begin with others. It begins with how you govern yourself. There's a deep paradox here. By letting go of everything you can't control, you gain complete control over the one thing that matters, your soul. Modern culture often sells you its opposite, the idea that power comes from acquisition, from visibility, from influence. But Stoicism whispers a quieter truth. Let go of needing things to go your way, and you'll find that you no longer fear when they don't. You don't resist what is. You don't flinch when the world shifts. You adapt. You observe. You remain. And in that stillness, in that loyalty to reason, something else arises, peace that cannot be stolen. You stop trying to own the world. You start walking through it with composure. And that the Stoics believed is the true definition of strength, not in command, but in calm. Not in holding tight, but in holding fast to yourself. The day is nearly done. The sky darkens. You sit with the quiet, watching shadows stretch across the floor like slow-moving thoughts. There's a practice the Stoics held sacred at this hour, one that you now begin to understand. Letting go is a daily ritual. Each night, Marcus Aurelius would reflect, not on what others did to him, not on what fortune took or gave, but on how he responded. What did I do wrong? What did I do well? What could I do differently? In this soft reckoning, he released the day. You try this now. You scan your actions not with judgment, but with awareness. You notice where you tightened your grip, where you clung to control, where you chased approval or resisted what was clearly unfolding. And instead of guilt, you meet it with honesty. Because letting go isn't a grand event. It's a slow, deliberate peeling away. You don't wake up unburdened. You practice releasing what isn't yours again and again until your hands no longer reach for it out of habit. There's a misconception that Stoicism is just morning armor, a way to start strong. But it's just as much about evening surrender. Not to give up, but to let your mind rest in clarity. To say, I did what I could. The rest is not mine. Some philosophers argue, does this make life too mechanical? But to the Stoics, repetition is not dullness, it's devotion. Like a sculptor returning to the same block of marble each day, shaping, refining, releasing what doesn't belong. So now you end your day the way a Stoic would, not with scrolling, not with rehashing every failure, but with breath, with stillness, with a quiet question. What can I release before I sleep? And one by one you put it down. The opinions, the outcomes, the weight. What's left? Only what's yours to keep. The world will not bend for you. It will spin as it always has, slow, indifferent, vast. People will come and go. Plans will change. Bodies will age. Loss will arrive not as punishment, but as nature's quiet continuation. But you no longer resist it. Because now you understand peace is the prize of surrender. Not surrender to despair. Not surrender to passivity, but surrender to what is. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you, woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs." You used to think peace came from control, from organizing your life so perfectly that nothing could go wrong. Now you know better. Peace comes from letting go of that very idea. You're no longer ruled by the need for certainty. You're no longer panicked by delay or misfortune. You live each day with hands open, not clenched. You trust in your effort, but release your grip on the outcome. This is not weakness. This is the Stoic strength. Because when you stop resisting life, you start flowing with it. And that flow feels like calm, like presence, like home. Scholars still debate, was Stoicism too accepting? Shouldn't we demand more from life? But Stoicism doesn't ask you to want less. It asks you to expect less, to love fully, to act boldly, and then to release what comes next. So here you are, not at the top of a mountain, not above life, but within it. Breathing deeply, listening fully, moving through each moment not with fear, but with trust. You let go of what you can't control, of who doesn't stay, of what refuses to unfold your way. And what remains? Clarity, dignity, peace. Because you never needed the world to obey you. You only needed to master yourself. The sky is soft now. The world settles into its quiet rhythm beyond your reach, but not beyond your understanding. The lamps are low. The city sleeps. And within you, something has shifted. You no longer carry what isn't yours. You've returned to the center. To the calm place the Stoics called your ruling faculty, the seat of your judgment, your choices, your soul. Breathe into that space now. There is no argument left to win, no opinion to control, no future to force. You've practiced the art of letting go, not as escape, but as return. You are not absent. You are here, just no longer tangled in every wind that moves around you. Marcus wrote by candlelight. Epictetus taught with a limp and a smile. Cato stood alone in silence. And now you rest in the same tradition. Quiet, clear, strong. Let the world spin. Let the noise pass. Let the day fall behind you. You've done your part. You've walked with reason. You've let go of what you could not hold. And that the Stoics would say is enough. So close your eyes now. Let go one last time. And sleep calm, untouchable, free.